listeners to the BizBlend podcast, where strategy meets soul and real business leaders talk about what it really takes to grow, evolve, and thrive. I'm your host Sana as always, and today in this episode, we are diving deep into a conversation many of us avoid. What happens when success on paper doesn't align with purpose in real life? And our guest today, listeners, is Robin Camarote. She's a transformational leadership expert who went from being dubbed the world's worst manager to a sought after coach and speaker, helping mid career professionals step into powerful, connected leadership. So, if you have ever felt stuck in indecision, you are unsure how to pivot, or if you're questioned if you are actually cut out to lead, I am absolutely confident that this episode is for you. So with that, Robin, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored and excited to have you here with us.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Robin um was worst manager, and you mentioned that one about that one Friday afternoon when it all came crashing down, that one fateful Friday afternoon, it changed everything for you. So if you can share maybe a glimpse of that, and what did that moment teach you, not just about leadership but about purpose?
Oh, yeah. So to set a little context, so I love the way you set this up, this fateful Friday afternoon, which is exactly, I think, in retrospect, how it felt. So what was happening at the time, I was a senior manager in a large business. And up until that point, I had been, just a strong individual contributor, which then for most of the listeners out there, you can relate when you show up, you do a good job, you kind of gradually get promoted and then you kind of take on more responsibility. And that had kind of happened for me. I wouldn't say it was really like on purpose, but I had had like these kind of successive promotions. And I found myself as a senior manager and I had a relatively large team. And I was intensely focused on our client and like on pleasing our client, doing a good job, and really like kind of just taking care of the business. And just to be honest, the people part was secondary if it was on my mind at all. Like it was a distant way down the list in terms of priority.
Okay.
So what that meant, like on a day-to-day basis, I was really trying to drive this forward, like pretty hard driving, trying to get actions done, reach our goals, make our client happy, and very much neglecting kind of what people on the team needed. And they were giving me the signals, like people were trying to talk to me about it, but I just really didn't have the time or the patience for any of it. And so on that one, as you set it up, the one Friday, fateful Friday afternoon,
Mhm.
half half of my team walked in and quit. It was like one after the next. They came into my office and he dropped a single sheet of paper on my desk, and it was a resignation letter. Oh my God, I was devastated. I was just super embarrassed. And in that moment, I just, after a couple of people, I kind of realized what was happening. And there was nothing I could do. And I just put my face down on my desk and tears are falling. And I felt so bad. And I promised myself, I said, if I do nothing else in my career, I just want
Mhm.
to be a good manager because I realized, like, in my drive to take care of our business and our client, I had really neglected all of these people around me who really needed me as a leader, and I needed them. I needed them. So, anyway, so it was devastating. But after that, I had to get a lot of coaching. I went to a lot of training and really had to kind of like turn things around. And it started with a really sincere apology. So ever since then, I've really just tried to be much more tuned in to what people around me want and need, and then how I can be more, attentive and help really serve them. Because to back to your question around purpose, I just realized like it doesn't like none of the business outcomes matter if we've left a trail of, you know, damaged, bruised people behind us. It just doesn't matter. So my purpose is really to help other people kind of come along the journey with us.
Robin, it's I mean, it's convenient to, and it's good to share your wins and your achievements, but to share your shortcomings and the moments where you completely come crashed down and you get to the rock bottom. I think it really really needs a lot of vulnerability and courage at the same time. It's a strength actually, and not many of the high achievers and successful people, they would like to share that. So I really really admire and respect how you shared. And one thing I would like to know from you, is that were you aware before that Friday afternoon when those 10 people submitted their resignation letter, that something like this was about to happen, or there were conversations or any kind of body language, or indirect conversations that I'm not happy to be a part of this team, something like that. Did you get any kind of hint?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great question. And so for people out there, I mean, I think because probably what you're tuned into is what are some of the signals that leaders might be on the lookout for so that they could kind of get ahead of this and maybe like avoid this happening for you. Because because the business reality of when half of your team quits, we we lost profits, we lost progress, and it had a very real financial setback in our business. So that was real. And that we had to rebuild. So if you now for me, now I feel kind of motivated by the fact that I do want to feel more connected and in service of those people that I work with. But even if that isn't your primary motivation, there's a really good business reason to take care of those around you. So anyway, so I think that's just as a side note, I think that's maybe kind of why you're asking is like, what can people be on the lookout for?
Hmm.
So absolutely, there were people who were coming to me trying to kind of they would do schedule time. I had like one-on-one meetings with people throughout this time, but I would say my general attitude was pretty dismissive of their concerns, and that was because we were working in a very, high demand, a very, like, attractive, like, place to work, like, a lot of people wanted to work there. It was on a high demand project, a lot of people wanted to be on that project, and my attitude was a little bit like, "Well, if you don't like it, there's literally 10 other people that would love to have this job." Now, I didn't say that out loud, but that was kind of like, if I'm just being kind of honest right here, like, that was kind of my attitude at the time. And and so I was kind of dismissive of their concerns, and I kind of felt honestly, I was like, "It's slowing us down." Like, if I have to listen to all of this, what I kind of termed complaining at the time, like, it's just slowing me down and slowing us down. So I was kind of, like, resentful and dismissive.
Hmm.
And, anyway, so I'm like, I hate to admit it, but that's true. Like, that's how I felt at the time. And because I was in that state of mind, like, I couldn't really hear them. I couldn't really appreciate what they were trying to tell me, so I just ignored it, and that's what kinda led to this kind of, like, dramatic scene where had I just been paying more attention or kind of listening a little bit better, I could have, stopped some of it before it got to that point.
Once again, Robin, I really, really respect that. Really respect that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And personally, I'm so thankful that I'm also able to, and I've gotten this opportunity to learn. And same for listeners as well, especially those who are managers or who are about to be managing people, leading teams, leading companies, creating startups and companies. So, thank you so so much for sharing that. So now moving on, Robin. When people they feel stuck mid career, um, and accounting for high achievers as well, they often default to doing more instead of doing differently. It's like, this is my expertise, this is my specialty, let me work on this more. I keep on doing good in this, somebody will notice, and I'll kind of get rewarded for that. How do you help leaders shift from this motion to meaningful movement, like a mindful movement?
Yeah, yeah, I think there's kind of like two parts to your question. So maybe I kind of like break it up a little bit. So one is that I think you're right. I think we get, feedback early in our career that we're kind of good at something or a set of skills. And it feels really good to focus on doing those things that we know we're effective at. So that makes a lot of sense. But I think part of your question is around like if you just kind of like keep doing the same things, you're likely to keep getting the same result. And meanwhile, like our businesses are changing, like the economy's changing, all this stuff is changing around us. And it's really on us to keep your head up and kind of stay focused on how you're evolving your skills and the way you work to continue having the kind of impact that you want. And so I totally agree. I think that's like just super important is always be scanning. But it's interesting you asked this because just this morning I like to run on the in the morning. And here in DC it's so hot right now. So it's really, really humid and hot out, but out there sweating and I was thinking about, there are we live at a time when there are just literally hundreds of different uh, opportunities, or I would say like options or ways of doing things.
Mm.
And for entrepreneurs, it can sometimes um, be there's almost so many things that you could do that it gets overwhelming. And for me, one of the challenges I've had is like I get excited about something and I'm trying to do almost like too many types of things at once
Mhm.
to grow my business, for example. When if I just took some time to take a step back and really thought about what were the one or two things that I'm going to have the highest return on the time I'm investing or the money I'm investing in this, like what would those be? Just really focus. So, so anyway, I think to the second part of your question is like as you're sharpening your skills and really making sure you're staying relevant on like the way the business is evolving, then picking just those couple of things that you think are going to have a high return because it is just so easy to fall into the trap of doing 100 things, like hoping one of them works instead of doing two or three that you really have confidence in that are going to make a difference.
Mm, that definitely makes sense. That definitely makes sense. And I absolutely agree with you. Especially during these times, it can be so obvious to kind of distract ourselves into doing 100 things just to stay relevant, because right now, and personally, I am facing with this, every time I think that, okay, something new is coming up, okay, this AI new tool is coming, this update is coming, web 3 is coming, I know so many different things. Maybe if I'm not able to catch up with everything, then I may get outdated, and that can once again be such a vicious circle. And this is so important, especially for founders and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because we all have limited time, and kind of like in kind of the limited mental capacity to like really keep up with all of this. But it can be, I mean, to your point, I think it can feel, especially as you kind of go into midlife or mid career, excuse me, when you feel like, okay, you have this basic experience that you're pulling from that's really a valuable asset to whatever organization or whatever client you have. That's wonderful. But, like, looking forward, some a lot of the clients I feel with almost work with almost feel like the clock is ticking in a way. Not, like, immediately, but, like, if it's 15 to 20 years out, like, when you think you might wanna retire,
Mhm.
there can be some pressure built up at that point to say, like, "Oh, if I'm gonna do something meaningful or with purpose, like, I gotta start now." Like, this
Mhm.
and they kind of put some time pressure on themselves, which I totally understand. I very much relate to that. And so that's really what I try to help people do is like if you're feeling like you want to have a career with impact, however you define that. There's not just one definition for that. But if you want to have a career that has that kind of impact, then, really trying to like focus in on kind of like what that means to you. So getting very clear definition around it, picking those couple of things that are going to have that high return on investment, and then getting into action. Because back to your like original question, I think just indecision and swirl and kind of like, oh, maybe I'm going to think about it a little bit more is what delays us from ultimately having that kind of impact that we all crave.
True, true. I agree. And Robin, you work with a lot of clients who are navigating career reinvention. So right now, what kind of, what are the most common roadblocks you are seeing people face, when they are moving from indecision into action? They are prepared, they are ready, but something is blocking them for from taking that first step, that first, action.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, and then I would love your reaction because I the single biggest thing that we bump into, and I think it's all of us, is this belief that there is a right decision.
Oh, yeah.
And because we're all conditioned, of course, like we're, like that's the way we're like whatever culture you come from, like of course you think like there's right and there's wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And that belief, just that one thing, is what keeps so many of us stuck because nobody wants to make a wrong decision. You don't want to like waste your time, your money, your status, nobody wants to do that. So, in this desire to kind of find whatever the right decision is, we just swirl. We spend a lot of time, we're in scenarios, we need more data, we need to think about it more, blah, 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 all this stuff. So, if and I tell people this and they kind of like nod politely, but I don't I don't know that people really believe me. But this is my core thing. There are no wrong decisions. When it comes to your career and figuring out that next step, the only thing is the only bad decision is not making a decision at all because what we gain in just picking anything is you get feedback, you get data that then informs like, huh, did I like this? Did I not like this? Oh, I liked it. Okay, great. And I was kind of good at it. Okay, let me do more of that thing. And you move towards it. We don't like when we're in indecision and we're just kind of like waiting, we're not getting any of that information. And so it's just really kind of delaying that kind of feedback that we need to be able to move forward.
You know what? I totally, totally agree with you. Totally agree. And this is something I've also faced a lot, especially in the last 2, 3 years before I got into podcasting. To be honest, Robin, I did not do any research around this. In fact, the first 6 months of my podcasting journey was actually not into understanding that, okay, whether it will give me a financial stability, whether it's going to help in my career. I just, felt like this is something I really want to do it, and I just got into this. um and of course, I'm not repenting, but sometimes, yes, there are situations, there are moments, when that brain of yours, that mind of yours, it gets into that fight or flight mode. And it kind of, once again, because it is biologically built to protect us. So that's when, you get into that. Thinking zone, that whether I took a wrong decision or I took a right decision. So, in those moments, Robin, how do you advise someone who is now embarked on upon that path of, transition or pivoting to kind of, compose themselves so that they do not get that anxiety and fear that, oh my goodness, this is something I was not supposed to do. And they are kind of, having that kind of, anxiety in themselves.
Yeah. I love this question. And first of all, I just want to say, I I love that story about you just wanting to do a podcast and jumping in, that's the perfect example. And I would, and my question to you would be like, just like, once you started, you kind of learned as you went, right? And there's probably like, you figured some things out. You do things maybe differently now than maybe when you first started, but you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. Like, but imagine if you like had kind of gotten in your head like, well, what's my topic going to be? And like, really, who am I going to, and then how am I going to market it? And like, if you kind of like got in that place, like it could be 6 months and like you wouldn't have had any of these episodes. Like, so just the fact that you took the leap, you said, I'm just going to figure it out as I go. Great. Like, and now look where you are. I mean, like, that's amazing. So I just wanted to acknowledge, like, I think you're like exactly, I think the kind of model that if you can take that mindset of like, I'm just going to try it just because I want to, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be cool. And, and here you are.
And then
So,
I'm huge over sorry to cut you off, Robin, but
no, no.
uh, you know, uh, I can understand this because I am a huge overthinker. I'm what I could say as a listener that I'm the perfect example of somebody with indecision because there have been so many times, especially once again in the last 4 5 years when I um kind of procrastinated on my decisions to pivot or learn something new. I was kind of nestled into that comfort of stability. This is something I should stick with, but then lo and behold the pandemic came. I was not affected during the pandemic, but just post pandemic, my especially my professional trajectory completely got off track. So that was really a tough time. But now when I look back, I really thank myself that I could just g- get across that bump and somehow compose myself and keep going on because
Yeah.
it can be a really slippery slope.
Well, I love that story. And so, I mean, you obviously have a lot of self awareness. And for you, I would say, a lot of people relate to that of, kind of labeling yourself an overthinker. I would absolutely put myself in that category too. And you're someone that takes action. Like you're both and. So and what a relatable story also that, you know, for you, maybe during the pandemic is kind of like what prompted you to go off track, but and I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Mm.
Here in the US, we have some things going on with our government that have gotten people off track.
Yeah.
And it could be anything. It could be, an illness, a move, a change. It could be anything that have people kind of feeling like they are not on the track that they set out for on their career. And I just relate to that. But what I would point out in your story is the persistence. Like you didn't give up.
Mm.
So, you kept showing up, you kept trying things. You might have been feeling like you were in your head a lot, but it didn't stop you.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, I mean, so what I would say to your back to your question is kind of like, what do people do when they're in that place? Is like, I think that if we put this expectation on ourselves to manage our manage our anxiety around whether it's a decision or something like that, that's part of what keeps us stuck. I kind of like to talk to my clients about like, just do it scared. Like,
Mm.
bring your anxiety along for the ride. Like, this idea that we're going to somehow get to this place where we're like feeling totally comfortable, it's just not realistic. And so what that means is that, all right, yes, yep, feeling anxious about this today, but I'm going to keep moving forward. So not putting that extra burden on ourselves to feel any particular way about it, but just do it anyway.
Absolutely. And I would also like to acknowledge another factor here that especially people who are now in that mid career phase, that the connections we build, the people that we network with, I believe that is so essential because you cannot take those huge risks and pivot, alone. I don't believe in that. Yes, there can be exceptions, but I don't know. I mean, I would love to know your opinion on this, Robin. Because with your story, how we began this conversation, one thing you really pointed about is people are so important, whether it's professional or it's personal. Whether you are managing a team or you're working within a team, or your friends, or you are connecting with like-minded people, it is so important, because they can constructively criticize you, and they can also guide you in the right direction. I mean, you can interact with people who have been there, done that, and you can actually learn so much from them. So I would love to know your opinion on this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I so I totally agree, and really, I think it's a good segue to kinda, like, the end of that story that I started with about that my team quitting. So, what happened after that is just this massive reset in terms of, like, how I interacted with my team, and like I mentioned, kinda starting with that apology. So, now it's been, 15 years later, and what I'm so proud of is that not only did we, like, rebuild that team and, so we hired the people and then we were able to even double from there. So we were able to rebuild. But the part I'm most proud of is the people that were with me back then that stayed. I'm still, they're my closest colleagues and allies and friends now. Like, we are still very much part of a community. And I love that because I completely agree with you. Now, we've kind of gone in separate directions. Like, people have, we're not working together on a day to day basis anymore, which is fine. But to your point, like, they're my people. Like, those are my network. Those are the people that you call, like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling overwhelmed or stuck, or like, oh, or just like, hey, I want to celebrate this win. And they're totally there for you. So, yes. So, networking, and networking, not just for the sake of kind of like, knowing people in different industries, which is super important for business development. But having your people around you that you have this deep professional and personal connection to makes this work, oh my gosh, so much more rewarding. And, to your point, like, so much just more productive and enriching.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. Oh, wow. So, Robin, I wish we had more time, but before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, and also get a hold of your wonderful resources, what will be the best way?
The best thing to do would be, to reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Robin Camarote. There, I absolutely love hearing from people on LinkedIn. If you want to just connect or send me a DM, I would just love to meet people there. So that would be the easiest place, and then from there, you can kind of like get connected into some other resources on my website or my Substack that may be useful. But I would say LinkedIn, please.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes for our listeners. And Robin, this was such a wonderful conversation. Not only we learned about so many aspects around leadership, and then mid career, pivoting, taking action with direction, uh, indecision. I think this was kind of just a conversation, and I hope that our listeners are taking some golden takeaways from this about reinvention. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Absolutely, Robin. And to all the listeners, if you are feeling stuck in the middle between what you have achieved and what's next, I'd like to say this, that reinvention doesn't always require a complete overhaul. Sometimes it's just a shift in how you show up. So, to dive deeper into Robin's work or connect with her coaching and leadership content, just check out the show notes along with this episode. And if this episode connected with you, share it with someone else stuck in indecision. It might just be the push that they need. Until next time, keep blending bold ideas with heart led leadership. This is BizBlend, and I'm your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.